Okay, I'm recording to the cloud. Stream.
Okay. My angle's different now. That's weird.
Everybody else is going to have to mute. And shall we just start with Jen this time instead of doing announcements?
I already did the intro, so we're not going to bother.
Okay.
If you have the previous recording, you can edit together.
Right on. I'm all about it.
Or I'll do it. Okay.
Wait, we haven't started.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still working on this.
Yep.
I don't know that we did that on Monday and it worked great.
Yeah,
It was perfect.
It's because we were streaming too. So what was happening is Facebook was open and we had the feedback on that, and we had
okay.
What we're going to need to do is everybody's going to need to totally mute everything except for Jen.
Remind me, share to your page.
Yeah, share to your page. So it was going to the right place. It's just we weren't able to pin Jen because other people were unmuted, and then there were a whole bunch of other stuff. So hi everybody.
So
we are back and hopefully working again. And I'm going to mute myself and everybody else is going to, and we're going to try to pin Jen here, and we're going to see whether or not we can actually get this working. So my apologies to anybody who lived through that little bit of silliness.
Okay, there we go. So first thing you need, hope you got 1 or 2 colors of felt, a stabbing stick of tool of your choice, some needles, some thread, and then the best of all, you need a bottle cap. Now there's 2 kinds. This is the old style. This is the newer style. The newer style is a little less high. That's perfectly fine. It will work. The bigger ones grab the ball a little bit better, but these are still good. We're going to start with cutting. And depending on which size cap you're using, whether it's this size juice cap, or this size juice cap, and with these you have to cut the fins out. And I usually take fingernail clippers and clip them that way, and then take scissors and go down and clip them out. But you, depending on which size ball that you're going to use, depending on which cap you're using. Okay, now I'm all rattled. Okay, so, but for this size, we want a 3-inch square. And the easiest way to do this.
Jen?
Yeah.
Just to let you know, everything is perfect right now on Facebook.
Fantastic. Okay. I'm sure I'll get razzed by my friends for this later. Okay.
Just blame us.
I'm going to actually raise my camera up a little bit higher because I don't know why it's came back and the view is different. So, okay. So this is your regular 9x12 piece of felt. This is just Kunin felt or rainbow felt from the craft store. If you've got wool, that's perfectly fine. If you're using scraps, perfectly fine. But if you have a sheet, I'm going to show you how to cut this, how to cut the felt into the sizes that you need, and you'll be able to maximize your felt. So we're going to fold this in half, and then I cut them in half. This is what I call my working sheets. Like, you know, the 6 by 9, and then you take one of these and you cut it in half, long ways, and this will give you 3-inch strips. Okay, so after this, if I need to slow down, people tell me. You're just going to fold the corner and measure out a square. Okay, that's our ball. Now, if you're using the craft store felt, you want to have 2 layers on the inside. So we're going to cut another layer and cut the side of the cap at the same time. You want to get a little bit more than the cap, but if you go a little over, that's fine. I usually will trim them. I usually will use my pinking shears at a certain point, but I didn't bring them with me, and you don't really have to. but it does make it look nice. Okay, so there's our side. And then we're going to cut this. We basically folded that second section into thirds, cut a third out for the side, and we're going to take this square, make a square out of this 2/3 size. Hope everybody's with me. Okay, so there we go. We had a half a sheet, and we've broken it down roughly like this. That clear to everybody? So we had a half a sheet, and we cut it like that. Okay.
It's great. We love it.
Okay, so now you just got to round these 2 squares off. And this little piece goes away until, well, you can go and cut another little square for the bottom. Get that out of the way now if you want. So we don't have to deal with that until later. Okay, so that's out of the way. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and make this out of one color, because why not? But if you want to make 2 colors, this is the point where you decide if you want to have the side out of dark color or the top out of a darker color. But you don't even have to have 2 colors. If you want, you can. But I just thought it'd be easier just to do one color. And then I'll do some really pretty stuff. Okay, so we're just going to cut this really briefly. And it does not have to be perfect. It does not have to be neat, because when we do the drawstring, it will not matter. So just round the corners off. That's all you got to do. You can tell I've done this a while. What I usually find is if you put your finger and you hold right in the center when you're starting, you automatically get a nice, you get a nice rounder little circle. You just sort of pinch your grip right there, and it just spins around your fingers. So there's that. And you're looking for about exactly that size difference. It could be a little bigger. I wouldn't go too much bigger, because once the cinches come in, it's going to be a little, and there's usually a smooth side and a rougher side. Put the smooth side on the outside. If you can't see it, you can usually feel it. Like this feels much harsher, and this feels much softer. Wool felt doesn't usually have that. So, okay. There we go. Get rid of my trash. For those who missed the first part, we're basically going to be making something like this, only I'm doing it in just one color because, it's easy. You can use any color combinations you like. You can get fancy. You can put trim on the edge if you want. So, okay. So
Hey,
we're going to take, yeah.
Show them that really pretty one that was the special order. That was so beautiful. And I bet that people would, especially, oh, wow. That's fabulous. But
this is one of the ones I'm famous for.
Oh, those are fabulous. Look at those. But also show us the one that's embroidered that was the special order. Oh, look how pretty that one is, guys.
And that's just a little bottle cap. They wanted it to match some china. They were going to put it in a teacup. And so I matched the pattern on the teacup. Well, all they really wanted was the pattern. They just wanted the colors of the teacup. So then I got this for nothing. So maybe I'll use this as a giveaway. If people send me an email at the end of the session, maybe I'll use it as a giveaway for people.
Oh, that would be great. I'll stick your email
at gmail.com. And I'll do a random number selector, and whoever somebody will win, and I'll mail this off to them.
Jen?
Oh, so the different tops again? Okay, I can do that. I just saw that message come up.
Super. And also give us your email one more time.
Jen.Segrest, Segrest, @gmail.com. And then, so this is, these are all the different kinds of caps you can use with this method. Juice cap, single size juice cap, and then pop caps. And this is a broth cap. You can use stuff like mayo caps too, but I don't suggest this ball method for those. I would suggest you do more of a bottom and sides and then stuff it and put a top on for those, because they don't have enough depth to hold the ball in. That's pretty much how that goes. So what happened to my circles? Oh, they're over here. They got picked up. Okay. Anything else anyone wants to see before I move on? I'm just using pearl cotton. I use almost exclusively pearl cotton. You can use floss. If you use floss, I suggest you use at least 3 strands of floss. And if you're going to, for the cinch, that I call the cinch, which I just lost, I suggest using a heavier thread. And if you're going to use, if you have pearl cotton, that's fine. I would use like 2 layers, probably of pearl cotton, because you're going to pull pretty tight. What happened? You're losing all my stuff. Needle wise, whatever needle works. I use these John James long darners, but then I've had some problems with tennis elbow, from pinching embroidery needles, and the pinching is what gives you that pinching and that grip is what gives you tennis elbow. But when I find when I use this, I'm losing it more like this instead of like this. So I've been using longer needles, and I've been much happier with it. Okay,
Jen,
so let's, yeah.
Jen, Sylvia would like to know if you could just give the dimensions of that strip that you have, and also the diameter of each of those circles. I know that you cut them out.
Basically 3-inch circle, and then I don't know, something that's maybe a 1/4 inch smaller all around circle. It doesn't have to be exact, but you want to stick about a 3-inch circle. I'll lay this back out again. This is this was a whole sheet of felt. I folded it in half, cut it in half that way. Large circle, strip. Ta-da! Just so half circle, half sheet, cut in half, and then you divvy it all up. Like I say, and you take the first, you just fold this corner to corner, and you cut your first circle. You cut your first square, and then you cut that 2/3 part down by a third. Cut a third off, and then you take the 2/3 side and you do your inside circle and all your other stuff. So that's where we are, and we'll do that. I only have this big other sheet fell here because I figured I wanted something that would stand out a little bit better. So, but if I have to measure this, because I do got a ruler, I'll go ahead and measure it. Hold on. Yep, about 2 inches. So, it could be a little over. I wouldn't do much under, but you're not going to see much of it really. When you get done, you'll see. So I'm going to go ahead real quick, and I'm going to use a doubled thread of my heavy thread. That's usually the only time I don't use and you're just going to do a drawstring all the way around. Nice and simple. Doesn't have to be really close to the edge. It doesn't have to be straight. It doesn't have to be neat. Nobody's going to see it. Okay. There's that. Not usually working like this. Usually just sit in my chair with it on my, just holding it in front of me. Like, this is different. Okay. So there's that. We're going to cut that off. Put it into there. Did I go through that thread? I did. Hold on a second. There we go. Okay. So we're going to widen it back out just a little bit and put our piece back in there. And the only reason I do this is this also, for one thing, it gives you, because sometimes this commercial felt is kind of thin. And for as firm as I stuff them, and I stuff them very firm, and you're going to be kind of amazed how much I stuff in here. And this keeps it from also stretching out quite so much, because sometimes it's a little tighter of a mesh and sometimes it's not. And so putting that second layer in there keeps the felt from being stretched too thin. And if it does stretch, you're not going to see it because there's another layer that isn't being stretched at all. So it all ends up working in the end. Okay, so my first bit, I usually put and roll it on my belly or roll it on something and try to tighten it up a little bit, because you're going to put just enough in that you can cinch it up and knot it off. And the rest of it goes in after it's already done. So you get it all in there. And you can use a chopstick too. Sometimes this hole is sometimes too small. This is a, see if I can get the camera to focus on it. I just use like a star tip screwdriver. My big stuffer is a T-handled Allen wrench that I use. And I just, you know, I get my muscles, any muscles I have, I get from stuffing with that thing. So we're just going to do a double knot, nice tight double knot. You don't want it giving out on you. Okay. If you ever have to do leather work or anything, cutting anything really thick or hard to cut, these from Guggenheim, oh my God, these are my ride and dies. On the bottoms, you can't really see because it's black. That's how I trim these. This will just be I just use squares of felt to use as a cinch, and I go with the scissors and cut it, trim it down, and you will be surprised how hard that is to cut. Even with like these scissors, you don't have a whole lot of strength at the tip, whereas these, you got power. It's astounding. Okay. Anyway, so we got this. We're going to keep stuffing, and I usually will kind of do a long little thing and kind of press it a little bit. Kind of hold it right there in the crook of your hand. And just keep stuffing. And it's going to take a couple minutes. So if people have questions, feel free while I'm doing this, because this takes a couple minutes. And you'd think that'd be enough. No, not for me. See how long those wrinkles are? You want to have very short wrinkles when you're done.
So Jen, Paulette asked about the John James long darner needles. What size?
I use a number 1, but that's me. Like I said, you need to use whatever fits your hand, whatever, I'm not a big believer in using embroidery needles for embroidery, and, you use whatever needles are the best for you. I think this is the largest one that they make. It has a big enough eye for pearl cotton. I can even fit a 3 pearl cotton through it. And I got it in a tulip thing. But yeah, so it's, hold on, let's see. There's number 1. I cut the label off. And I bought this bulk pack off of Wawak. I don't know if you guys have heard of Wawak before. W-A-W-A-K. It's a big New York City seamstress and tailoring and sewing supply. They have a gigantic 300-page catalog that's just addictive to look through. And I got, I don't know, a 50 pack or something like that. So I basically bought myself a lifetime supply. I'll never have to find them again, because I had one needle that I used for like 5 years, and I couldn't find, well, hell, more than that, 10 years. And it was still holding up good, but I was afraid I was going to lose it. And then I did. And I couldn't find anything else I liked. And so then I started looking for the perfect needle. And while it's pretty perfect, I did like the sharpness of my other one better, but these are great for felt. Like I said, it's a nice long thing. You can get all. I have big hands anyway, so I can put all three fingers on it and still get, have a lot of control. I don't have to have a really small needle to get really fine control on it. We're getting there. This is the part that really just about takes the longest because the stitching part goes pretty quick. I'm going to shorten that. I think we're going to keep having to remember to lean in and get into the center of this. I should have done one of these in advance, but I figured you guys were probably going to be stuffing along with me. So, and the thing that's nice about the screwdriver is that you can kind of stuff it in and kind of twist it, and it kind of compresses stuff for you.
Sorry, excuse me. Sorry to interrupt, Jen. This is Maggie. I've got a question on Facebook.
Yeah.
Catherine wants to know if you would repeat the cut sizes of each felt piece. She had to, because she had to log back in and she missed it.
I don't use the exact cut sizes. Full sheet, half sheet, cut it in half again, so long ways. And then you cut, there's your square. That basically makes a 3-inch square. And then you use, so, I'll just cut another one here. So there's your basically 1/4 strip, okay? 1/4 of it lengthwise. And then you fold here. And there's your first one. And then you take this part that's basically 2 by 1. And unfortunately, we're going to be, somebody's out front of my house. You go about 1/3, fold it into 1/3. There's your strip. And then you fold that into a square, basically to almost like 2 inches, basically. And you cut your inner circle. And then you just need a little piece for the bottom. And that's it. And then you got, you can basically make 4 out of one piece of felt if you're using the same color. That cleared up?
I believe so. Let's see.
And when I get done, I'll take this piece of felt here and I'll show you what size balls to cut for these. Because it's the same procedure. It's just bigger. Okay, this is looking pretty good. If you need to see if it'll, if the things show, put it in there. I kind of manipulate it. Oh, I still need some more over here. You don't want to see any. You don't want to see any lines. So I got to stuff more in this direction over here. And sometimes I'll sort of stretch out, hit my stick in there and stretch it out. So I got places to put it. I do this watching TV all day. Let's do a little bit more over here. I don't like the look of that one. See, I'm sitting there wiggling it into that. Does this have a size? This is a T10. a Torque Star, I think, 10. I don't know, that's that. I just find this is what works best for me. At one point, I had designed a stuffing tool with a friend who has a 3D printing machine. And at some point, I want to get that actually made and sell it because it was pretty awesome. It had like an ergonomic arched handle, so you didn't have to, crane your wrist and stuff. It was pretty good. Okay, let's take a look. So this is why I like the taller caps better. And sometimes you need to take that and kind of help shove it in a little bit. Okay, I think that'll work. And I got a little crease there, but that's not a big thing. Sometimes you can take the needle and pull it out a little bit, pull a little stuffing into it. Okay, so there's that. Now, if you are not really good with what do I want to say? If you're not really great with even stitches, take a pair of pinking shears and run it across one edge. They have some really cool pinking shears that are scallop shaped. So instead of getting zigzags, you got scallops. It's really pretty. And they have those in different sizes. You can get them on Amazon and hell, Temu. So we're just going to go ahead now. I'm just going to use a straight edge. You don't have to fancy trim it, but I think the fancy, let me show you what the fancy trim looks like. There, that one. Can you see the little scallop shape? And then you just stitch between the little arcs and you have perfect stitching. So, that's a good cheat for you. Yeah, here it is on this too. Can't really see it on the white so much. But I find I use the scallop shape a lot just because it looks nice. It has a nicer finished look to it. But I didn't bring them back with me today because I figured not everybody has them. So you're just going to wrap this around. And then you stick a little pin. Where's my little pins? Gonna stick a little pin. I'll use this one. These are my favorite pins. These are applique pins. I lost it. Let me grab another one. These are applique pins. They're only like a 3/4 or an inch long. And for doing something this size, it's absolutely perfect because they go all the way through. And you can, I use it all the time to put pieces on with and to keep them attached while I'm stitching them on and everything. There's my other pin. And I will usually pin this one to itself through. And then you want to take your scissors and just run them across the bottom as a guide. Like that. And then you're going to take, where's my square? There's my square. And you're going to hold the square on there. I usually stick the corner there. And you trim it right to the size of the cut. You just round it off. Okay, so we're just going to wait on that. And if you got a weird edge, you can just neaten it up a little bit. But honestly, it kind of fixes itself. And if you need to trim it as you go, you can. Okay, so now I'm going to get, what happened to my other thread? I don't know. Get some thread here. And you don't need a whole lot. I don't know, 18 inches. You'll probably end up have some left over. But you want to have enough that you have a comfortable pull. And my favorite way to thread the needle is you don't thread the needle, you needle the thread. You put the thread, tighten your fingers, and then you just push the eye over top of it. And of course, I'm working a little further away this time, so I'm not having as good of a time with it as I usually do. There. Okay. And I do use a knot. I just use a single tiny knot. And then you kind of bury it here along the edge. Actually, let's do this. We're going to stitch up the side first. Okay, let me get you guys closer now. Okay. Just hold with your finger and you just do a simple whip stitch. Easy peasy. And I usually, every 3 or 4 stitches when I'm doing the outside seaming, I usually hold it and give it a tug, and it kind of makes those stitches go a little microscopic, and you can't see them. If you want them to be seen, that's fine. But I usually will give them a little tug like that. And now I just go around and do, again, another, if you want to do a decorative stitch going around, you can do that. If you want to do a blanket stitch, you can do that. Anymore, I just don't. I just go straight around, but I have really even stitching, so do not feel intimidated by that. Like I said, if get a pair of pinking shears, and you can fix your even stitching problems if you have one. But I find that people who do beadwork are really good with even stitches, especially if they do bead embroidery, because you usually have a pretty good hand-eye coordination when it comes to distances like that. So then we just go around. And again, it's going to take a couple minutes. If somebody's got questions, shoot in. I have my chair stuck at a certain height. My chair kept losing its height. So I got some things on Amazon that keep it propped up. You have little clips like you do on those metal shelves. And it got these clips to hold the seat from collapsing. And now I wish I would have about 2 inches shorter. Wish I had taken them out before I'd done this.
Ooh, look at those variegated colors that you've got there.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Now those are pearl cotton, right?
Yep, that's pearl cotton. I like the pearl. It's a for felt work, it's strong. It's not, it doesn't quite disappear into the felt. I find floss can sometimes disappear a little bit. It's a little too fine. That's why I say I wouldn't use anything less than three or 4 strands with floss. I've got like 2 big boxes. I can show you my all my pearl cotton in here, my pearl cotton stash.
So Jen, do you sell pearl cotton, or do you want them to go somewhere else?
For pearl cotton, I recommend, honestly, for pretty much all your embroidery stitches, all your embroidery threads, I recommend 1, 2, 3 stitch.
Okay.
They've got the cheapest prices on pearl cotton, and I think they've got like shipping starts really cheap and they're really fast on delivery.
So it's the numbers 123stitch.com.
Yep, 123stitch.com.
Okay, I'm going to stick that in the chat for everyone.
Because your local craft stores only have while they have usually all the colors of floss, they don't have all the colors of pearl cotton usually. And pearl cotton's usually a little harder to find, even though I think it's a far more utilitarian thread. I find it a lot better I prefer it for embroidery. It's all I use.
Is it DMC?
Yeah, this is DMC.
Okay.
And they have all the DMC threads. They have pretty much all the threads except for little small houses and little private ones and stuff like that. Sue Spargo's good too. She's more expensive. Hi.
Maggie here again. Is
Hello.
That size 5 or size 3 pearl
This is
cotton?
size 5. This is size 5.
So that's the smaller.
There's an 8, but
okay, yeah, but I mean of the 3 and the 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
5 is smaller.
Okay.
And depending on what you're doing, if you're doing like tatting and stuff, you can find it, up into like 10s and 20s even. You can find it really fine. But okay, so where'd my circle go? There's my circle. Okay. So now we're just going to get this put on. And I think I need to trim it a little bit more. So I just take my scissors and just trim it just a little bit and round it off a little bit. There we go. And it will stretch a little bit as we go around. And you're going to get knots, of course. I need to spin this. Hold on. Okay. Fine, I have to spin my thread every 15, 20 seconds. 20 passes sometimes, depending on how often I have to regrip my needle. Okay, so here's see how big those stitches are? I'm going to give them a pull. See how they just about vanish? Now, for those who want to do beadwork, I don't recommend, when we get to the decoration, I don't recommend beads on top, because needles don't go through beads because they're too big. And unless you make big holes or something you're going to aim for, I really try to go for utilitarian and useful, pretty pin cushions. And if you can't put a pin in it because it might break a bead, then it's not really useful. There. See how nice that closes up? Just it's almost, you almost can't tell. But if you want to put beads on the sides, I think that'd be fine. I don't. I sort of got into the habit of, I try not to use anything that a pin can't puncture. So that's just me though. But go crazy. You could put like pretty beaded fringe down the side of them. You could do all kinds of stuff. And if you want to add a ring, I cut a hole in the bottom of my bottom piece, and I've already usually I will glue on. I have a ring base that has a flat top, and I'll hot glue that to the cap. And then when I put on my bottom piece, I've cut a hole, cut a kind of an H-shaped slit. I cut a. Let me show a piece here. I'll if I'm going over the ring, I'll cut a little H-shaped slit like this, and then there, and that will go over. That'll go over the ring, and it kind of nestles. And sometimes you don't even need to do anything else. But usually I will come through and then I'll trim those tabs off after I've sewn it up. Sometimes I'll trim that off and then round it off a little bit. Okay. We're almost done with the main part. And again, give it a little tug. Give it a little spin. These, once you get going and you get used to this process, you can whip out these bases. What was this? 15 minutes, something like that. 20 minutes. And when if I don't have a whole lot of order, sometimes I'll sit down and my eyeball. I have ones that look like eyeballs, and if I get a chance here, I'll pull one out of the box, or I'll show a picture. There, and then I'll usually hide my thread, take a 50-degree turn or something, and hide my thread inside. And there we go. There's that. Now it's ready to decorate. I'm just going to use variegated colors. I'm going to use different top and bottom. But like I said, it's up to you. Everything works. Okay. I think what I'm using is called vine stitch, I think, or fern stitch. It's basically just an open chain stitch, but chain stitch is perfectly fine as well. Let's start with this one. And I got another, these are the embroidery ones. They're fantastic as well. I keep them on a lanyard around my neck. Okay, so let me lean back over here. What I usually do is just come in at the seam, come in from behind this. Oops, I need to thread it first, I guess. Thought I did that. Okay, so I come in from behind the seam and come out right in the center. And then I'll come back through that stitch and through the thread usually to make a knot that's sort of hidden inside the, and that's a little bigger than I usually like it, but that's okay. And then you're going to start about, I don't know, about a 1/4 inch over and just lean it in towards a little bit towards the center. So it's basically an open chain stitch is essentially what we're doing. A chain stitch would go back here and just keep going through that loop over and over again. But you're going off one side and off to the other side. This is one of the easiest stitches to do. That's why I thought this one might be. It happens a lot. Sometimes the thread gets tangled on itself and it decides it's going to make your life a little crazy. And I probably should go back and take that one out and restart it, but I'm not going to. And if you go, you can do nice and straight, or you can bounce back and forth, which is the typical one. You can go wider and not quite so into the center. And then it'll jig-jag back and forth. So you can really adjust how wide or how narrow this pattern is. By which direction your needle tip is pointing. If you want it to be more straight, you go right to the center. If you want it to be more wide, go more straight out instead of going in towards the center. If you're looking for embroidery stitches, I recommend Pumora, P-U-M-O-R-A. She has a .com and she's on YouTube, and she has fantastic. He has a stitch video showing you how to do the stitches in video, as well as pictures on her website called her Stitch Lexicon. And she has hundreds of stitches, and including stitches that team up with other stitches, like a whipped back stitch and a whipped chain and the different way you can team stitches up together. But so this sort of shows you kind of where we're almost done here. There we go.
Can you repeat that website for the stitches?
PUMORA.com. And she, on her site, she has, I think she charges you a video on the site, but she does have videos on YouTube under the same name. And on her website, though, you're looking for the Stitch Lexicon. And she has a link to it on her site. And that's just still pictures, but honest to God, her pictures are good enough. You really don't need the videos. And sometimes the stitches don't match up, and that's fine. So we'll just throw one in there. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll come up over here and I'll throw another one in over here. Trying to go back into that thread and then put another little one here, going in there. And then I'll come up and go back down and try to hide my end. There. Now for the flowers we're going to do, just going to do a single chain, which is easy peasy, just like what we did. Honestly, it's kind of the same stitch. I need a drink, hold on. And I apologize for kind of mouth breathing. My allergies are killing me right now. So we got our thing again. And I usually come in through a hole. And I'll come up another one that I'm going to come back into later. And go down a different area so I can make a knot in the behind there and come out. So you can tug and you don't really have any, you don't have to worry about that coming out. So you just come out of the hole at the, you can either do it at the end of each one, or you can come out here at the branch and put it there. Either way, I'll do one of each so you guys can see. So we're just going to, you go up just a little bit, go around the needle. And then you go back down at the end. And then I'll do one inside and I'll do another flower too and show you. So otherwise, you also could come in here and do an inside. You could do both if you wanted. Yeah, just easy peasy. And then you also can do just go come out, go over and across, and then down and back up and through at the top and make a little three. You can make a little three flower.
Jen, sorry, can I interrupt you for another question from Facebook?
Yeah.
Pamela wants to know what type of needle you're using from Wawak.
Wawak. It's the John James long darners, size 01.
John, okay.
They're yellow and white. They'll be like a packet. I think it's like 25 or 50 needles or something. Now you don't have to buy that many, but that's the only time that you can find. Otherwise, you can buy the long darners and it has like one needle the size that you need. So I bought a big pack. Since this is all I do, I bought a huge pack of them.
Okay, so John James long darners.
Long darners, yeah. And I said usually there's an assortment pack that you can get pretty much anywhere. Like Amazon, you can find an assortment pack, and it's like 1, 3, and 5 or something like that. But you're only going to get like one of those needles. But like I said, whatever needle works for you. I'm just showing what I use because I have, I've given myself embroidery elbow, and I cannot tell you enough how much those, those tennis elbow straps. You think those like are lame looking? They really do work. Because I got to the point where I couldn't pick up my glass because my arm hurt, and then, but doing this is, like I said, changed my grip from a little needle that I'm using like this and doing that pinch. That pinch is what the elbow, what that does. It pinches that muscle back here, and that makes all the difference. But so anyway, there's three little different. You put it on the ends of the stems. You can put it in between the stems and use it like a leaf, and you can put it at the end of the stem with three little stitches. I can show some more fancy ones if you want. You can go up and go back toward the thread, and come out, and then. This is one of my fancy ones. This is a little higher end one. Like you're knitting. For people who know how to knit, this is a cast on. So it's just, you twist it and you sort of doing a blanket stitch over top of the needle. So you go around and then you come out and you get a little pod like that.
It almost looks like a bullion knot.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's kind of, well, I was going to do bullion next, but yeah, the cast on, like I said, it's just like the cast like you would cast on with knitting.
Yeah.
For those who knit, it's exactly the same thing. And then regular bullion, like she was talking about, that's, I'm going to do kind of a round bullion. Hold on a second. Okay. So this is basically just a jumbo sized French knot. So all you're going to do, it'll come out right next to, if you want it to be round like this, you'll just come out right next to where you went in, where you're coming out of. 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just wrap around a few times and hold it. This is not the needle I recommend for this, by the way. I can show you the needle I recommend for bullion stitches. Because regular needles and bullion stitch usually do not mix. But you just sort of have to sort of finesse it when you're using a regular needle. And you'll sort of have to hold it with your nail. And you can get like a little tiny little. I should have made that longer than 5. But I'll get it. Hold on a second. I got to be able to see it. But you can make a little tiny little bud like that with a bullion, or you could do a longer bullion. Let's do a, I went the wrong way. Uh-huh. I'm from Springfield, so I can say haha. Okay. Those who never watched The Simpsons have no idea what I'm saying. All right. Okay. Like I said, all these stitches you can find on Pumora, and so many more. She's got so many tons, and just however you want to decorate it is up to you. Like I said, if you at this point, if you want to put beads on there, that's fine. I would just, like I said, I would stick to beads, keep it to the sides, and try to keep the bulk of the cap. I would keep do embroidery on the top, but don't do. I wouldn't do beads on the top, because at some point somebody's going to not be looking. They're going to stick a needle and it's going to go right through a hole, and it's going to break the bead. Okay, so let's do a long bullion this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I usually do 10s. So you get that long little stack. You kind of got to finesse it with your nails, and then you'll go back down in at the end after you get it tightened up. But yeah, so that's just some stitches. It doesn't make a difference. You can use whatever you want. If you want to, like I said, you can do an assortment. You can do a whole bunch of them. And if and on the you can do a pass going around the top and have it go in the other direction, and and do your ivy out of this color and do your flowers out of the other color, however you want to do it. But that's pretty much it. It's pretty easy. That vine stitch is one of the easiest ones you're going to learn. I'm not sure how much more I can explain, because that's pretty much it. Anybody got questions or want to see something else? And these are really good. I'm going to put a pin up to the camera here, see if you can hear it. Can you hear it go in? I pack it so tight that I can actually shake this thing around with it on there, and it doesn't come out. And that's the whole purpose that I want my pin cushions, because I had once dropped one of those magnetic pin cushions on the carpet, and in cleaning them up, I embedded one in the top of my foot and didn't realize it. I thought I just got bit by it, but I actually broke it off in my foot. And the next day I'm at work and my shoe hurts like crazy. And I took my shoe off to look at the top of my foot, and then I couldn't get my shoe back on. And so I had to go to the hospital, and they had to pull out the live action machine x-ray that they could look while they probe, and they were trying to pull the pin out, and they finally got it out. And it took about 3 hours before they got it out of me. And so after that, I threw that thing away. I threw it into a box. I still have it because sometimes you need to run that over an area to pick something up, you know. And but so after that, when I started making pin cushions, I make sure that they are solid. Like this one too is packed just as solidly. I don't know if you can see my fingers whitening up when I press down on that, but they're hard. This is, I usually what I call tennis ball. I usually kind of go for like hard as a tennis ball is usually what I'm going for, at least with these bottle caps, because they got a lot of pressure on them. These are a little softer. But these caps, I really like them to be tight. And to give you an idea, I can put my needle in there and that's, you know, it's not coming out. And so if you drop them, you can throw them across the room. You're not going to lose a pin. And that's something I like about them.
Jen, are those two for sale on your website?
Yes, they are. You can. And every one of these is individual. I've made these in every color base on the universe. No two of these have ever come out alike. You can pick out whatever. You can pick out a color combo. You can pick out, you know, you tell me exactly how you want it, what colors, or just surprise me, you know, because like I said, the paisleys, there's never two paisleys that come out alike ever. But this is my most expensive one. I'm not going to lie. I think this is what, $120. And it's not nearly enough. I know that. I should charge more for them. And they have a long lead time because I have to work on these in between other orders for a while before they get done, because they take, you know, about 40 or 50 hours of work minimum. But that's, like I said, that's my TV time. You know, that's why I watch TV.
Jen, question about is there like fabric that you've stitched around to get those beautiful colors?
Nope, that's just all felt.
Oh, it's felt.
It's all felt. Yeah, and you can see here a little bit more.
Yeah. Felt.
Just applique. It's just felt applique that I do stitches on top of.
It's a beautiful job. Wow.
And then let's see. I like this one the best on this one. And then this here is a the striped one. That's just a chain stitch that I've whip stitched, and that's the cast on stitch, and that's the bullion stitch. The purple is the bullion stitch. Got French knots. That's the chain stitch. So a lot of what and the French knots, a lot of what I showed you just now on this one are on here. You know, they're the basic, kind of like the basic mother stitches. You know, there's the chain. I can show chain stitch if people want to see it. And that's just a single chain off of. And there's the cast on. You know, so this one needs some more stuff around the outside. I'm going to work on that before I send it out. This one I just finished. I think I'm going to put French knots in the middle of each one and be done. I usually do a rainbow on each one, and this one didn't end up with a rainbow. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. But again, chain stitch, bullion, you know. So that's that one. And then this one I think is 65, because it's about, you know, it's half as much work, you know. Honestly, it's half as much work, so it's half the price. And so they wanted one on black, so I went with really bright colors, and they wanted this one in cranberry, so I went with more earthy jewelry tones on this one. And then let me see if I can.
Hey, Jen?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I share the screen and share both your eyeball on your Etsy and also that last one that you showed?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to share, guys. So I think that worked. Let me know whether or not that shows up. That's that last paisley one.
Yep.
So yep. That's wonderful. Okay, and I'm going to stop share now. I'm going to share your eyeball too because I love it. So,
I do the eyeballs in 5 sizes. It started off just being the small size. And then somebody asked, I want a bigger one. I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. And so.
Let me know if that worked.
Yep, that worked.
Oh, so much fun. So you can see, you can select an option here, an eye type and a size. So, all right, I'm going to stop sharing now. So sorry to interrupt. I just
it's fine.
Excited to show those.
And I've done those eyeballs in every combination of colors. For some reason, blue skin and purple eyes are popular. I don't know why. Zombies and humans are about half and half. And then there's a few, some people want black skin, some people want, brown skin or tan skin, brown eyes, green eyes, strange colored orange eyes. I've had everything. Before I leave, I was going to talk about how to do for these size caps. Okay, start off with your basic sheet again.
Before you do that, I put the name of the pincushion book in the chat, but I couldn't remember the second one. So I remember
Embroider Your Life.
Say that again?
Embroider Your Life.
Okay, and I got the other one. I got the pretty little pin. Okay,
I don't get any piece of those, so I don't, not a big deal. It's just I got projects in there. That's all.
Right, and people want to see them.
So again, we're going to start with a half sheet. So we're going to go ahead and cut this in half. Okay, I should get it in camera. Duh. For this size cap, let's do one that doesn't have junk in it. I haven't washed yet. For this size cap, actually, they're slightly different. The sizes of these are slightly different. So if you're doing this size cap, which you probably won't be because this cap has been discontinued, I think. And they're only got these caps now. So if you get these, I make a square out of a half sheet, and that's the size circle for this one. But if you're doing this one, you probably want to go over about that much and cut it here, just like a finger width, basically a finger width less wide, and that would make the perfect size ball for this one. If you're doing the smaller size caps, then you cut this in half, you fold it in half again. And then this size square is the size that's perfect for the smaller single size juice caps. You don't have any difference in those. And then again, you want to use 2 layers, blah blah blah. So that's how that works out. That works out pretty good. And then with this one, when you cut this, you're going to end up with a nice big square here, usually on the end, and you'll use that for your bottom or you use that for your inside if it's big enough. But I usually will use one of these circles. Let me go ahead and cut that just so I'll use it for something. So because people always get these juice caps, and I thought, well, I can show the small ones because that doesn't take much time. You save these for caps later, and then you cut this one big. So like I said, the half sheet square is for the large caps. The quarter sheet square is for that, and once you cut one of those in half, that's the circle for the inside of that. So, and then you can take the rest of this and make this a circle. Make that for this one, and save that for a cap or something. But so that's basically kind of how I do it. And I have a huge bag of scraps. I say scraps like this go into my bag. I pull them out later. I got a box of scraps too. Anybody needs felt scraps, let me know. But yeah, so right there, and then you'll just cut the strip. Again, you just want the strip just as a little wider than your cap, and then you place it where you want it to go at the top and pin it down, and then you just trim off the extra. And you just trim off the extra, but you usually want the cap to be a little taller the band to be a little taller than the cap, so you can go into the pincushion underneath. But yeah, any final questions? And you can add elastic to the bottom. That I have it stoned down, but to make it nice and soft, I put a little piece underneath of it, and I said, there's the ring. And you can also put this size is great for a wrist one. This one's not bad for a wrist one either. If you got big wrists, you can just put elastic in the bottom of those too.
We love these. Thank you so much.
They're really easy, and they're really good. They're really good for traveling. I gotta say, they're great for these here. I made a whole bunch of like little mini sewing kits for my girlfriends for Christmas, and I made these little tiny little broth cap ones, and I threw them in there with them, and I gave them some of these little tiny pins because they fit in there, and but it's a great little project for taking like in the car. You can't really do beadwork in the car, but you can make one of these in the car. And I drove to Mississippi once for a funeral, and I sat in the back seat and made like 30 of them, in the trip there and back. So it can be done.
I like the idea with all the different size caps. That's really cool. And they have such a great base to them.
Yeah, and they're nice and solid. They don't tip. And they give you a little bit of weight. If you want to weight them, you can put a couple washers in the bottom. That works out really good. Or like pennies, whatever. But you can put them down. You can put them down on the bottom there because it won't go too far down to that bottom. But honestly, once you get pins in them, I have to tell people this all the time. They're really light until you start packing them full of pins. Once they get full of pins, you don't have to weight them down anymore. Because the pins, the pins, do add quite a bit of weight. You'd be surprised how heavy a pincushion gets once it gets weighted down.
I like the one I can see one with a little pink flower on the top or whatever. That's really cute. Yeah, look at that flower.
Yeah, if people will send an email after the class to jen.segrest, segrest @gmail.com, I will do a random pick. And I will mail you this for coming to the class because I made this for an order that it wasn't what they wanted. So I don't know what to do with it. And yes, you can poke right, needles go right through the stitching. Absolutely fine. You can stab the heck out of those roses. You don't have any resistance whatsoever. So you don't have to think about where you're putting your stitches.
So Jen, what kind of a stitch are the roses on there? That's really beautiful.
That's that cast on stitch that I was showing you over here. Hold on, that's the cast on stitch. There, that blue. It's the same exact stitch.
Okay.
Except that if you go look up bullion roses, and usually bullion roses are done with the bullion stitch, that this one, that blue one. Yep. Usually they're done with that, and that's fine. But I wanted to make more petal-like petals, so I did it with the cast-on stitch. And you do exactly the same way. Basically, you sort of start in the middle, and you work, and you do 2 of them, and then you do 1. You kind of work your way around, like a halfway or third around. And you just keep going around. You start with maybe 5, and then go to 8, and then go to 10, as far as how long your stitches are, and you get that.
Beautiful.
And it's actually, once you get used to it, it's really easy. And the leaves are the same exact stitch, just done side by side.
That's so great. Thank you so much for taking time with us. These are just so fun and so pretty, and you made it so easy for us. I really appreciate it.
Well, once it got going, we were fine.
Yes. Once again, to anybody who's watching, I'm really sorry about the technical problems, and thank you for hanging in with us and sort of getting us through it. We apologize for that.
Oh, and we know for next time at least what works and what doesn't work. But So anyway, you can decorate the way you want. Thank you, everybody.